Intelligence Committee report on Russian interference in 2016 stated this: no single group of Americans was targeted more than African Americans. Our national correspondent, Jerika Duncan, shows us how one group is fighting back on that. Jerika, good morning to you.
Good morning. When you think back to 2016, I don't think voters or candidates were prepared for the onslaught of misinformation. Well, we sat down with Andre Banks and Ashley Bryant. They created an organization to ensure that 2020 is different, particularly for Black and Latino communities. They say their ultimate goal is to make sure that voters have the tools they need to fight misinformation and stay informed.
What is happening with our own video on this? How's it performing? Where do we actually post it?
Each morning, Andre Banks and Ashley Bryant sign into what they call the War Room to discuss the latest popular posts that are spreading false information. You all call this a war.
Yeah. When you look at what happened in 2016, this is one of the biggest campaigns to misinform American voters in history. You know, when you have that level of strategy on the other side, you want to meet that with a level of strategy on this side. It's important that Black people, Latinx people are able to make their voices heard this year.
They're co-directors of Win Black Palante. Palante means to go forward in Spanish. They work with more than 200 people across 15 states, mostly swing states, to monitor memes, messages, and images across the most popular social media platforms.
As the demographics of this country change, it's critical that we are able to have a conversation across race. We're able to have democracy where all kinds of people can show up, and we can come together to make the big decisions that we need to move the country forward.
A Senate Intelligence Committee report found that more than 66% of information spread online by Russian operatives during the 2016 election contained a term related to race. One fake account called Blacktivist had 11.2 million engagements with Facebook users.
These groups are impersonating Black folks, pretending to be Black activists, and they're using the issues that matter most to us to lure them in, have them thinking that it's a sense of community, and then they ultimately say, we're not going to vote. Let's all band together and abstain from voting.
Do you think this was the difference between Hillary Clinton losing and Donald Trump winning the presidential election in 2016?
I think it definitely contributed to it. I think, misinformation, disinformation campaigns writ large, and obviously, Black and Latinx voters are key voting blocks within the Democratic Party.
You all say this is the modern day poll tax for African American and Latinx voters.
The weaponization of digital media is really a large form of voter suppression, voter depression. These are attacks on our communities to misinform us, to disinform.
To counter posts that are verifiably false, Win Black Palante has created GIFs, memes, and posts that are true and factual. Their library has more than 400 million views. What's the most recent misinformation you found that you've had to counter?
Yeah, we've been tracking very closely a range of misinformation about Senator Kamala Harris, and since her nomination on the Democratic ticket, part of misinformation is not just outright lies, but really confusing and muddying the waters. In this case, we've seen a lot of the kind of birtherism that we saw around Obama.
Would you say a lot of the misinformation you're trying to counter impacts voters that are likely to vote Democrat?
Yeah, if you look at the last elections, Black and Latinx voters disproportionately have voted for Democrats. But if misinformation can happen to any community, then anybody can be the target of it. If it can be weaponized against Black people, it can be weaponized against women. It can be weaponized against older Americans. And so this is something that we should all feel a part of trying to stop and trying to change.
Win Black Palante says it gets its funding from individual donors across the country. Tony, this really comes down to a part in our time, our history, if you will, where it's so important for people to research the information that they're getting, whether it's through Facebook or Twitter, and also listening to the candidates.
Yeah, such an important story, Jerika. And not only should people be researching what they hear, but also asking themselves, what is the source of the information? Is it trustworthy? What that source's motivation may be, being skeptical. I want to bring Gail in on this because Jerika is absolutely right.
Yeah, I was thinking
we live in an era where there is more information available than at any time in our history, and yet less and less of it is trustworthy.
I know, and we're sitting here on a CBS platform. We're in the news business, and I go online and look at some of this stuff, and it's so hard to believe what you're seeing sometimes. You have to do your own diligence. And most importantly, I like what Jerika said, listen to the candidates and question where the information is coming from. It's important that you do your own due diligence on this, because the people who are spreading misinformation, they are very good at it. Very good. That was a great piece, Jerika.
Absolutely right.
Great piece.
Yeah, well done, Jerika. All right, ahead.